episode of Death Toll Racing. This is basically, what are we doing? We're going to do the doghouse in this episode, and maybe some work on the motor, because I just pulled it out because I was getting really frustrated with it. The freeze plugs and stuff, I couldn't get them out. I couldn't get one of them out because it's one of those rubber ones that are just like supposed to be a temporary fix, and it's like just basically attached at this point. I couldn't get it out, and plus the frame, the cross member, it was right in between the cross member and the block, and I was just sitting there fighting it. And I'm like, man, I don't know why I've had that motor in there that whole time. I should have pulled it out a long time ago, just so we could go through it a little bit. So now that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna pull the pan off, inspect it, pull the valve covers off, inspect it. I think I'm gonna pull the intake off and just clean it up and stuff, and then we can paint the top of the motor, up here, and kind of clean everything up. We're gonna replace the distributor. The wires are kind of shot on it, and I happen to have another distributor, so it'll be fine, a new one. And then we got a mini starter for it, so we're gonna put that on. We got headers for it, so we'll take those off. We're relocating the oil filter. We were doing that anyway, so that's gonna come off, and it's the actual Butler oil filter relocator block that goes on there. It's not one of those spin-on adapters to relocate them that way. So yeah, and that's that. So the reason we're going to take the pan off is we need to put a baffle in it, and it was something that I wanted to do anyway, but I was just gonna let it go the way it was. But now that it's out, we're gonna either replace the pan with one with a baffle, which is probably what I'm going to do, or if I can't find one, we're going to modify this pan and fab it up and put a baffle in and maybe some kickouts and stuff on it. We can't kick out too far because the exhaust, but and we can't kick forward obviously because the axle will hit it. So we're very limited. So aftermarket pans I have to be very careful with them. I would like to have a baffle so that the oil tries to stay in the pump when we're at funny angles. So like a road racing baffle, road racing oil pan would be good for something like that. So anyway, so we're gonna do that. And yeah, it's a good thing I bolted that water pump and stuff on there. So now I get to tape it off so I can paint around it. But that's okay. It was supposed to just be all temporary, but now it's going to be a little less temporary. Yeah, so that is that. We do have a different filler neck we're going to put on it as well, and we'll get all new sensors and all that stuff for it so that we're not just chasing problems once we put it back together. Anyway, so that's where we're at for now. On that one, the update on the power brake stuff is I have to find a new source for him. I just required him to refund me. We'll see. I gave him a deadline, and if he doesn't do it, then I'm gonna have to try to do a chargeback on it, which sucks. You don't want to do that too often. If you can ever get someone to refund it, that's what they always recommend, is have them refund it. But that guy is terrible. He should be absolutely ashamed. Last Thursday, he created a shipping label to try to shut me up, I guess, but he never actually shipped the part. He just created a label. And now it's today. Right now it's Wednesday, so it's been almost a week. It's been 6 days since he created the label. And I've had it. I'm done. I will find someone else. I should have done that a long time ago. I should have just forced him to refund me. But now it'll be a lot easier to contest it now that he hasn't shipped me and he's drug it along so far. I have to wait because if you get too far out of your window on returns too, it's really hard to contest it, and that might be what he's shooting for. So I'm going to call my bank tomorrow after 10. That's his deadline, and I'm gonna get the chargeback going, and hopefully that's not a problem. Hopefully I don't have to go about it another way. So anyway, so that's where we're at. On one hand, you're like, gosh, why did I pull that out? It's going to open a can of worms. And I knew it was going to when I did it. But I'm really glad I did. That was a can of worms I didn't want to discover after we get it all running and everything. And we're like, cool, we'll go drive it to the first car show and have to tow it home, which is what would have happened. Guaranteed. The cam is gone on it. It'll run good right now, but in about an hour, it's going to start stack firing when you hit the gas. And then in a little bit after that, it just will be almost undrivable stack firing out the carb until it just doesn't run anymore. The cam, someone put synthetic in it. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. The cam's very pretty. The lifters are cupped. The lobes look like fuel pump push rod lobes. You know, but miniature. Yeah, I can't justify staying Pontiac on this thing. I can't justify it. I was already looking up how much they cost, and I'm trying to build this thing on a budget and be good on a budget. But to get the same, I'd have to spend twice as much, and there's nothing budget about that. There's nothing budget about spending twice as much to get the same. Or you know, arguably worse, really. I mean, if you think about it, you know, these things have cooling and stuff. And on a trail, it's something I was always worried about with it, with trying to run a Pontiac in it. I'm half expected to take the heads off of this thing and have the pistons in upside down. That's that. I'm going to move on. I'm going to push this thing aside and not spend any more time on it. I am going to pull the serpentine stuff off in case someone wants to buy it. But yeah, I can't justify going down this road anymore. We went way too far down it already. I have to do a U-turn, come back to reality, and go down a new path. So that's what we're doing. So I'm going to go start shopping. I do have a guy coming to pick this up today. I sold it. I sold it and all the parts that we had collected for the Safari to do this Pontiac motor. I decided that I am not going to go back to Pontiac. We're going to convert LS and we're just going to stay that way. So I ended up buying this LS. It is a let's see, 2016 L83, so it's a Gen 5. This is a very modern engine to be putting in. They're direct injection, variable valve timing. The tuners are starting to really discover the potential with these things. They're 11 point something to 1, might even be 11.5 to 1 compression, and you can get away with that because you squirt directly into the combustion chamber now with the fuel on them. So you can get away with having real high compression and still be able to run on even 87 gas. Really, really cool. As time goes on, this will be the new normal. This is very advanced. This is going to be really, really cool. But there are some changes. One, direct injection doesn't make vacuum, so they have to run a vacuum pump. And then two, they don't have power steering pumps because they're electric steering in the new cars. So that's a hurdle. I already have that solved. There's plenty of aftermarket already for that. There's a few companies now already making power steering conversions and stuff for it. You have quite a few options. So we're going to end up running a Corvette pump, remote reservoir Corvette pump, on the other side underneath the alternator. They make a bracket that relocates the alternator a little bit and adds that pump, so no big deal. We have to take the vacuum pump off, which runs on its own belt, so that it's no big deal to take that off. And we have to take it off and then plug some oil ports on it. That would be in our way, so we can't leave it. I would just leave it there just so we could run our heat control off of it, but this is going to guaranteed hit our power steering box, so that has to go. Differences on a Gen 5 to from a Gen 4. They say that the manifolds are different. I do not see what's different about them yet. Nothing is standing out to me, but I am not like a complete expert on LS motors. But they look the same to me, so I don't know what I don't know what has changed on it, but they say that they've changed. Or at least one of the things I was reading says they changed them. And then the motor mount on where it bolts to the block, that has changed. So if you are replacing an existing LS with a Gen 5 LS, or they're actually considered LT motors now, not LS motors, this series. So it's like the new thing, the new normal is LT motors. The motor mount block on the block has changed. There's already available ones. So if you just have one of those adapters to an old style Chevy mount, they make the exact same thing for a Gen 5. So all you'd have to do is just replace that backer, and then you could use your same mount, or however you're doing it. So in our situation, we're doing fab mounts. Like a fabricated style mount onto the block, and then it has a bushing, like basically a leaf spring bushing, welded in, and then we have 2 tabs that we can just trim them to fit our frame, so we'll weld those in. I ordered ones that are adjustable quite a ways, so I'm going to do a ton of research, figure out how long our TR6060 is exactly, so that with the Atlas and stuff, so that I can position that thing in a manner to where all we have to do is slide this motor back, bolt that thing on, and we're back in business. So I'm going to do, hopefully, as long as they're that close. I think they are that close, though, so that'd be good. These manifolds are absolutely perfect, by the way, for this car. That is exactly where I need them to exit. So we are in really, really good shape for manifolds, for exhaust locations. So we're just going to leave those for now. We may upgrade to headers later when we soup this thing up, but that'll be after we get a transmission that can hold it. So we are going to run a turbo 350. I got a new turbo 350. I have one that's rebuilt. I shouldn't say it's new. It's an older rebuild, but it's I have it here. It's never been ran, so we're going to use it. We're going to throw our manual valve body on it and use it, and we're just going to use the stock Turbo 400 torque converter for now, since this is so temporary. So on the Gen 5s, they changed to an 8-bolt pattern. So that does add a hurdle to putting an old transmission on it. The aftermarket doesn't have a lot of flywheels meant for those old transmissions, and it's probably just because they haven't been in a rush to do it, because technically they wouldn't really work very well on here anyway, because since the engine doesn't make vacuum. Ours will work fine because it's manual valve body and it doesn't use any of that stuff, but if you're trying to make one that actually shifted proper, it's not going to work super good on this. You're going to have to come up with some sort of a, obviously you have a vacuum pump, and then you're going to have to come up with a switch like off of a 6.2 diesel or something that ran a Turbo 400 to simulate the vacuum of the throttle, which they make, and it's possible for you to do it. And you just have to rig that up to the pedal itself, since it's throttle by wire, and then run a vacuum line from your pump to it, and then from that switch down to your transmission to simulate your throttle position to that transmission. Honestly, it's probably not worth it. Really, it's just time to upgrade your tanny. GM Performance Parts, because a 4L80E will fit pretty much anywhere a Turbo 400 was. They do make a flywheel and converter for a 4L80E, but for some reason, the flywheel only works with that converter, and that converter only works with that flywheel. So I just knew right after that there's no way that if I bought that flywheel, which is $260, I don't think it would work for us. If they're that specific, then to each other, then I don't even need to go down that road. I don't think it would work, and then I'd just be modifying a $260 flywheel. So when I measured it, it is still the same face of the block to here. To the face where the converter breaks up, that distance is still the same, like the 15/16 that it always has been since 55, or probably even before that. That's still the same. So that didn't change. It is like a metric bolt pattern now. Instead of 11.5, it's like 11.1. So we are going to have to open these holes up just a tiny bit. Except for the ones that are already oval, like this one and that one are already oval, and they're already oval out in that way. So we might have to touch them a little bit, but they're actually pretty close the way they are. And then we have to get this is just basically standard LS in the center. So that same bushing, spacer bushing for the snout to pilot in, that same bushing will still work. So we're pretty much in good shape there. We just need that bushing. One thing you do have to do when you're bolting these things together, and I don't know why that is, even though everything measures perfectly, sometimes you need to space the transmission back 1/8 of an inch. So they do make a spacer, and You want to do that because if it pushes the converter too hard in the pump, you'll blow the pump out. Something you have to pay attention to. So when you know your converter is seated in your transmission, and if you don't have to pull it forward 1/8 of an inch to hit the flywheel, you're going to need that spacer. I measure this thing. I think it's going to be fine without one, so I didn't order a spacer, so hopefully that doesn't bite me in the butt. But I don't think we're going to need it. Everything measures exactly the way it should to bolt up, just with the normal adapters and then modifying it. If you have an older LS, you can just buy a flywheel that bolts to that, and that's not an issue. They're available for that. They're just not yet available for this motor. I think they will be at some point available for it, because drag racers will insist upon using their power glides and stuff. So flywheels probably will start coming out that have the old style bolt pattern for the torque converter, I imagine. But just right now, I can't find any that do. So that's it. Motor mounts. The AC is going to come off. It's on its own belt, so that won't affect anything. The bracket and everything, you could use your AC still. The bracket that we got coming for the alternator power steering pump wouldn't change that. That runs on its own spot on the balancer, so it wouldn't be affected by your by adding that power steering pump to it. That would just stay the same way. But we're not going to use it. We don't need it, so it's going to come off on it. I'm going to take off as much stuff on this thing as I can, but I'm going to wait until I get all my parts, so that since I'm not crazy familiar with these things, I don't want to start taking stuff off of it and not be able to, and have to, not that I wouldn't be able to figure out where it goes, but I don't want to have to spend time trying to figure out where something goes just because I forgot. So I know this episode didn't go exactly as planned, and by exactly, it really didn't go anything as planned. And I didn't want for that to happen, but it did. I mean, I got side railed by it, but I think it's going to be a positive thing. I'm going to look at it on the positive side. This is going to set us down a road that is going to give us tons of opportunity later on. It's going to in the end, it's going to save me quite a bit of money, because it's going to be a lot cheaper to get a lot of horsepower out of those LT motors, which I'm still not used to saying. But I come from back in the day when you used to build LT1s and stuff, so that would, to me, is an LT motor. But that's what they're going to call these now. So it's the LT motors. So we're going to have to get used to it, I guess. I don't know what comes after LT motor now, since that was the end of the original small block Chevy. I guess maybe something's going to come after this, after those LTs, and it'll probably be an electric motor, sadly. So anyway, stay tuned. Doghouse is coming up. I am going to go start working on that here soon. I'll probably start doing that in the morning, Doghouse stuff, and I'll record it, and then that'll be coming out soon. And then also we got that transmission for the F350. If you're following that build too, that's coming out. That'll be coming out soon too. I'm gonna get going on that as well. So anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.